Good morning, everyone. And first of all, a big thank you to Himanshi and Arvind for putting this together literally in a week's time. We were chatting last week about how COVID-19 has thrown pretty much every business out of sync. And what is it that we can do for the SIMSR Entrepreneur Alumni Network? And we call it the SANE. So it occurred to me that there are some seniors over here who are seasoned and have seen several of such events. The last one being 2008, prior to that, the Y2K bust. And if you're tenured enough, you would have seen the 1995-97 currency crisis. So this could be the fourth cycle for some of us. And we could use that experience to share with some of our budding entrepreneurs, or even if you're a seasoned entrepreneur, it's always good to kind of come across and share these sessions. So Himanshi and Arvind, thank you so much for pulling us together. And Sendhil and Lalit, welcome. Thank you for being on this first panel discussion. And to all the audiences, I must tell you that yesterday when we were talking about how do we want to run the session, we kind of ended up with two different formats in which we wanted to do. But I think collectively we agreed that we'll first start with opening comments and then turn it over to some Q&A. And if the opportunity presents us, we'll kind of break out into different sessions where you could have a separate room for Sendhil and separate room for Lalit and me. And then we could speak with you all one-on-one or in smaller groups and try and address some of the situations you might have. Again, this is more of us networking together and sharing ideas. Of course, any idea or suggestion that is shared on this is up to you to kind of apply it to your business and see how it works for you. So with that, I'll probably lead with my introduction, request Dr. Lalit and Sendhil to introduce themselves, and then we could do a quick round of opening comments. So I'm Jaideep Kewalramani. For some reason, the participant list shows me as Legasis Services, so that's me. I run a company called Legasis Services. We are in the space of legal technology. We have over 1,200 clients in India. We offer compliance solution and legal tech solutions. I personally come with over 22 years of experience across several sectors, worked with organizations like Thomson Reuters and Zensar, built several businesses and turned them over. I had the opportunity of being recognized by the SIMSR forum as a distinguished alumni. It was quite really at that time when I really got hooked back to the network. So trying to give back to the community. By academics, I'm a graduate in taxation, followed by my master's in international marketing from SIMSR, of course. And then while I was in the US, I took the opportunity to do my exec program from Stanford. So that I'll take a pause, request Dr. Lalit to introduce himself, followed by Sendhil. Hello, Radha ma'am.
Hi, lovely to see all of you here.
Hi, good morning to all. I am Lalit and currently into this essential services. So there's a lot of stuff happening around. So I own a pharma company which is selling branded drugs into the market. So currently I'm into cardio and diabetes space, but at the same time, I have my consulting also, which is working into a lot of customized solutions, and apparently there's a lot of work happening around due to the digital stuff. So I have my legs also into a digital network team, and we are working quite a lot onto this. There's a lot of new things which we have created, and we are almost on the verge of launching. Also trying to look at it from the government angle, because before we go further, I would also request, most of us are entrepreneurs here. Please do visit the Startup India website. There is whole lot of stuff where the government is trying to look at solutions from most of the tech guys or even otherwise into multiple different dimensions. I'm sure most of you are working in and around in some of the areas. One could start to contribute. We are looking at two projects right now. One is on the telemedicine front, where we are trying to create a solution which we could offer free for at least couple of months to the doctors, so that they can do a teleconsultation with recording facilities and all, and generating prescriptions, so that in this moment of crisis they can work onto it. Possibly next week we are trying to go live. And another project which we are working on is called as Upskill Masters, which I would also discuss with SIMSR once we are ready, because this is going to be a platform again from a perspective of how we can add value to all those people who cannot afford to own a platform or create their own platform. So kind of a marketplace where a lot of stuff can be worked out. So for a product from education, training and all, and also working on a prototype once our lockdown is over, how at a mass level we could try to work on face recognition and managing the temperature by sensor based, IR based, so that at mass level how that screening can happen, and with face recognition a lot of stuff can be built up. So that prototype work is happening. Soon we would be kind of discussing. So there's a lot of stuff happening around, and I would be excited. I'm currently to look at also is are in different ways I could contribute to some of the guys who are around, and also if there's a way in which we could collaborate and also try to create some value for each one of us, right? Thanks.
Okay, so who's the next? Sendhil is not here.
Yeah,
Sendhil was
I
here.
got
Hi,
logged
Sendhil.
off briefly. I'm back.
Okay, so Sendhil, you've done the introduction, is it?
No, I have not. I got logged off briefly. It was an internet blip and just got back.
Okay, so what I think what we've done is we've had Jaideep talk a little bit about what he does, then we had Lalit talk a little bit about what he does. Sendhil, if you could go ahead, then we'll open it for what you guys have to say about all of those points that we spoke about.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Thanks, man. So let me just introduce myself. I am from the 93-95 PGPMS batch of SIMSR. That happens to be the very first autonomous batch. So probably the oldest in this group here in terms of having passed out the years. I worked in an organized industry only for 5 years post graduating, because the itch to be an entrepreneur has always been very, very high. And being an electronics engineer and a telecommunications background, I wanted to always create a platform which can possibly. So I have so far been associated with 4 startups. Currently, the venture that we are running, I would not call it a startup. It's about 5 years old now. In all these startups, I have very actively worked in technologies related to GPS in terms of asset tracking, RFID in terms of auto identification technologies, worked on a whole lot of mobile applications which are consumer facing. And currently, the business that we run is very actively involved in terms of deep technology diving in terms of product creation and application space related to counterfeiting. And of course, the other venture, which is completely unrelated to this, where I'm involved, is largely related to retail. It's in the business of visual merchandising. So currently, I'm with this 2 companies. One which is Hardcore Technology, where we provide anti-counterfeiting technologies to a whole lot of education campuses, to state government offices, to central government offices, largely in identifying the genuineness of an asset, be it a document or be it a consumer brand. So it's a cloud-based platform where the customers can log in, and using an encrypted QR code technology, they can identify how genuine the asset is, what they are purchasing either at a point of shelf or at the point of issue. The other venture, of course, is completely unrelated. It's in the space of visual merchandising. It's completely leveraged in the retail space, very, very badly affected in the current times. So we are working very furiously to see how we can sort of re-engineer around that space and use digital technologies to see how a visual merchandising, which is a very touch and feel kind of a business, can still survive in the present times. That's briefly about background. Jaideep, thanks so much for putting this group together. I have been associated with SANE since its inception, but not very actively in terms of meetings. But this is a good initiative. Looking forward to sort of interacting in terms of the general views that come up. I saw Arvind's mail where the challenges have been outlined. Pretty much, I think, a bunch of common issues there. So look forward to converging on a set of common solutions, and if need be, take it one-on-one with respective participants.
Sure. Thank you, Sendhil. Thanks, ma'am, for joining in. So I think what we'll do is we'll spend the first few minutes going over the expert panel, and I'm going to take the opportunity of pulling in Radha ma'am as well, since she's available over here. We try and keep the set part tight so that we can open it up more for Q&A and for others to interact. So very quickly, let's first touch upon cash. I mean, cash has become extremely tight, and like the old saying goes, cash is king. Most businesses are facing trouble with maintaining cash flow. There is a lot of talk around talking to your clients, bringing the cash in, conserving your current cash, optimizing your outflow to your vendors, optimizing your outflow to your employees, and making a drawdown on the credit lines you may have. If you don't have credit lines, talking to your current investors, talking to your current bankers and bringing cash in. I mean, there are a whole bunch of opportunities available. In general, we've seen that the clients, which are larger entities, are facing a lot of stress. So for example, Tata Steel is talking to all their vendors in pushing out payments by further 45 days. Now, Tata Steel is one heavy industry, so we understand that their cash flows work in a different way than a retailer works. We work with a lot of retail clients as well, including some big brands, some boutique brands. Their business, like Sendhil mentioned, has come to like a little grinding halt. I mean, you can't open the stores, you can't sell merchandise, you were not ready to sell merchandise online. I mean, how much will you sell online, because the delivery and supply chains are stopped. So different businesses are facing different issues. So if the client's cash flow is blocked, obviously that has an impact on our business. So with that, what are some of the suggestions that Dr. Lalit and Sendhil and ma'am that you have that you can share with the participants over here? Very quickly, and then we'll move to the next one.
Yeah, so you wanted to start this on this?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, I think Jaideep, you've touched upon the most difficult challenge, as in how do we use the cash in the system, how do we conserve the cash, and a very often used phrase that we all read about it every day today is how do I flatten my curve? So pretty much analogous to that, I think this is a call which every business has to take in a very, very threadbare manner. A very micro planning is required in terms of how much we can pull the operations with whatever cash is there in the system. So the way possibly I would look at it is very company specific. So I would possibly look at, at what stage of the business I am in. I mean, taking a very hypothetical example, if my business is in a steady state where I am able to service customers and I have a bunch of customers who are getting added on a regular pipeline, it's not a very initial inception stage business, then I'm pretty much confident that once the lockdown is lifted, once things starts limping back to normalcy, my customer, the acquisition rate is going to come back in time. So possibly in that sense, I would look at, two things that, one can possibly do. As the saying says always, even in good times, you sort of demarcate every expense you have into possibly three categories. You have the very ugly costs, you have the bad costs, and you have the good costs. The very ugly cost at this time obviously is going to be something related to a capital expenditure, which is an absolute no. You do not touch any capex expenses. Only insanity will, allow somebody to do that. Looking at the bad costs, very simple logic says anything which is not a revenue expenditure is something that has to be avoided now. So look at segregating all the non-revenue expenditure costs that leaves us with your most critical cash burn items. I would possibly suggest that you look at every item on your cash burn through a lens, through a microscope, and see what better you can do to possibly get that cash burn lower by whatever extent you can. If I'm running a cash burn of 15 lakhs a month, look at every item, look at everything that is not going to materially affect my business in a very significant way, and see how we can get that component down and try and stretch that as much as I can. The second obvious step I would do is, if I'm confident of business coming back, I would possibly add some debt at this stage, raise some cash through the traditional or whatever unconventional means, and make sure that you're able to run your revenue expenditure for a period of 3 or 4 months. Give yourself a horizon at least for the next quarter. If you're able to last out this for at least 3 months with a couple of these things, options that's there with you, either adding a little bit of quantum of extra cash in the system or by conserving it, flattening it, letting it last for a longer span of time, I think that's the most logical thing to do. I would attack those elements first and see what I can do with it.
Okay, that's good.
Thanks, Sendhil.
Hi. So, looking at currently the different things what are happening around, and also looking at it from what government is trying to do. So, though the banks are not fully functional, there are 2-3 internal things what we as an organization have also tried to look at. One is, there are certain level of already some contracts which we had raised for certain products of manufacturing. Now we have actually gone back again and looked at is that possibly we are now reducing the quantum of production which we were earlier going ahead just for economies of scale. Because the higher I buy, the lower the price I pay. But unfortunately, during this crisis, what we are now revisiting the whole thing, what was happening around, so that I don't go out of stock for certain products, but at the same time, I am able to preserve some cash, even though per piece rate slightly marginally goes up. So that's one way of trying to look at that, whatever resources I have, how do I manage? The second thing, what one needs to look at it from a startup perspective, which most of the times we don't do, is getting in on ahead with the MSME registration. MSME registration is going to be playing a very important role. In case you haven't done it in the past, I think that's one of that important one which people need to register their startups, because one needs to spend a lot of time or maybe 2 years at least to kind of look at it from government resources. This was a mandatory stuff till some time, but during this crisis now, government is also trying to put up at a lot of relaxations on those points. So one, as a startup, if you have got some revenue running in already, and if you are able to get into ahead with some revenue projections, one thing what definitely everyone needs to attempt is at least to try for the Mudra loan which government is promoting. It's not going to be easy. Obviously, you'll have to create some project reports, look at it from a terms of how much revenue, how much cash can one look at. So that way, people will be able to add a lot of value onto it. But at the same time, Mudra loan is not more than 10 lakhs. But that is something at least will help to move over the current crisis at least for a couple of months. Now, that's one way of looking at it. But the most important part amidst this lockdown, what one needs to look at it is internally, understanding what one was trying to do or one was attempting to do, create and look at overall, like what Sendhil also said, that look at it item by item, look at it line item wise, look at things which you were doing, which you thought were important or critical, but in current situation, they may not be. So one has to look at it from that perspective of what is it that is essential, which one needs to look at, what is it something which people can let go so that it can be taken care of 3 months down the line. Because right now, resources are going to be critical, funding is going to be critical. One has to manage from what one has, but as soon as the lockdown is out and one, people will be able to move out, most of the people are going to run around for getting that fund from the banks. So try and organize, talk to your CAs, get your act together, start working on a project report, and keep things handy so that as soon as this is out, you could be along talking and discussing with the banks. We have already initiated discussions. So there are all these relationship, managers from the banks. Initiate conversations in case you are going to look at it. If not Mudra loan, there could be challenges, but at least there are still opportunities to get some good, decent business loan at a very attractive prices because of current level, which should help to take care of the immediate crisis needs just in case there is a shortfall of resources. I mean, that's how we are going ahead and working and planning for our survival next few months down the line.
I'd like Jaideep. I've not been in touch too much with startups and the challenges that they are facing. But what I have seen is that there are a number of people who are trying to reduce their employee salaries. So the employee salaries has been brought down by small percentages. So that's also in the news. So that's one. And the second is collaborations. So I see a lot of people collaborating. So for example, I have a neighbor upstairs who runs something called, it's a children's book thing. So she has collaborated with somebody who's in the baby product business. So between the baby product business and this, they're collaborating, and therefore she's try and see whether she can keep herself relevant. I don't know whether she's making any money, but collaborations are happening is what I have seen. I think that's my input.
Right. Yeah. No, thank you, Radha. And here are some things that we've done as a business that I'd like to share. One is take up all the moratoriums that the government has to offer, whether it's on your personal EMIs, whether it's on your business EMIs. Encourage your staff also to take up moratorium. Not that you want to take their financial decisions, but tell them that, look here, I mean, we are in this together, we're going to brace. So take up that. That will help you in the cash flow for the next 2 months. Apart from watching your fixed costs and breaking down, what we've done is very quickly developed a very simple cash flow scenario for the next 3 months. Because we know that the lockdown has been extended till 3rd May. We don't know whether it's going to be extended further. So at least for April, May, June, start with what's your bank balance. Identify what are your, like Sendhil mentioned, you can't touch those fixed expenses. You have to carry on to keep the lights on. Then look at what your vendors can stretch you. And therefore, what is the cash position you need at the end of every month? Then I think Dr. Lalit kind of mentioned, how do you raise that cash? Where do you conserve it? Do you want to do debt? Do you want to do equity? Do you want to ask certain clients to give you advances? And trust me, I mean, these are times when certain clients will rise up to the occasion and say, hey, you know what? You've served us well. Here's an advance. We'll go figure it out later. Talk to some of your early investors saying that just loan us something more for the next 3 months. So doing this cash management, and it's very simple, it's very useful for you to get a grip on what your current position is. So with that, I think we'll pivot to the next question, or the next subject that we want to talk about is engaging with clients. And I think, Sendhil, you mentioned a point that this is not the time to launch new capex projects because that will mean a cash burn with no certainty of outcome. But the business scenarios have changed. I mean, if someone were to ask what has caused your digital transformation, it's not the CTO, CIO, but it's the coronavirus. And it has turned all the businesses upside down. Clients have changed the way they are working. Therefore, we have to adapt. I'll lead with what we've done as a business. So we are in the space of offering legal solutions. One of the first things that we did in the first 72 hours was quickly pick up components from our existing technologies and the content that we have, and we launched a risk management solution that allows businesses to handle 36 risks across 5 categories, and we put it out free for 90 days. So we respond to the market scenario by giving solutions that were need of the hour, and we did it by giving it at no cost. So we didn't use the window to monetize. There are a whole bunch of other initiatives that we ran, but the point that I'm trying to make is, what are the customer centricity opportunities that COVID-19 has presented? That's part A of the question. Part B of the question is, what can we do to continue to engage with our existing clients or clients that are like ready to sign the contracts on 31st of March, but like, hey, 15th of March, things went out of whack. So there are two parts to this question. So it'll be good to learn about how you are managing on your business, and then I'll circle back. Maybe Dr. Lalit, we could start with you.
Sorry, I was out for a brief period. So can you just repeat the question?
Sure. There are two parts to the question. One is, what is it that we can do during these times to help our clients? Because the clients would also see that we are a responsible provider. We are doing something to help them navigate COVID-19. And the part B to the question is, how do we continue the engagement with them? There would have been opportunities where deals were like literally being inked towards the end of March, but it got postponed because of COVID-19. So some thoughts around how do we maintain customer centricity during this time?
Yeah, in fact, I would kind of share something which I have undergone something live. Okay, I'm audible.
Yes,
I
you are.
hope so. Yeah. Okay. So, basically the clients, I mean, everyone in the ecosystem nowadays is trying to look at that how they maintain their cash, how they maintain their resource and try to get something at a lower cost. And some of the times when we are trying to work around on customized solutions for clients, and that's where there's bargaining power now with everyone. So, I'm just launching a small project for a company which typically say I would have charged at least 12 to 15 lakhs for a project. Currently, we are doing that project for around 6 lakhs. So it's basically, a hard bargain right now on the same lines as maybe you call it emotional. But it's about everyone in the ecosystem understands this. And that's where when I am dealing with people who are going to provide me a tech, so these guys are also looking at a lower margin because they just want to also cover up their overheads. In turn, I am passing on the same benefits to my clients. The client seems to be happy at this point of time looking at that. There's a whole lot of stuff being, helped from a perspective that they are getting something amidst this crisis at a lower cost. So the whole lot of stuff, as from a market perspective, if we look at, yes, people trying to save money, but end of the day, if you are still looking at from a long-term perspective, then the whole idea is that how do I also pass on the benefit which I would generate otherwise to help keep the momentum on. Okay, and that's where, in fact, we have asked our sales guys, okay, at times to even help collate certain information which was for my distributors. If someone is, kind of, because we fall under these essential categories, and if the movement of stocks doesn't happen, then everything goes for a toss. So at times, picking up even the small part of the job, which otherwise, people feel it is below their dignity, but during this crisis, just not think about it and just help the client in small possible ways, which goes a long way. And I'm sure when all this crisis is over and when we start to work around, all these small things are going to be remembered, for which the clients are also going to continue business, or they are going to see you as a preferred customer or as a client in time to come just because of this.
Great. So let me share specifically about what we have been doing over the last few weeks. Just to recap on the line of business, we have a product line called Smart Docs. Now, this product is specifically useful for universities, colleges, engineering colleges, any kind of degree college that generates a student document in a sort of an automated way, and also helps the university authorities authenticate this document online. So we are lucky to an extent that the transaction that we provide is already cloud-based. It is an online transaction. And sort of we have to ensure a couple of things to make sure that the services that we give to our customers at this point in time is up and running. So we sort of went into the situation that we have and made two clear decisions. The first and foremost call was to consciously ring fence your customers. We have about 35 clients who are consuming this platform. and they're all with us on an annuity model where they sort of do 1 or 2 reorders during a year, depending on their convocation schedules that happens during the year. So these 35 clients had to be ring fenced to ensure that these clients do not feel the pinch of a disruption in service during this time. So a conscious attempt was made to reach out to each one of these clients via email, via phone calls, and say that, look, the servers are up and running, the services are up and running. Whenever you have a need to get into your mark sheet issue or a degree certificate issue or a convocation program, which of course, fortunately was all over. Most of them were done with it by the time the lockdown hit. But yes, the services are running so that these clients do not go away anywhere. The first and foremost thought was to protect your turf. We knew very well that these clients are not going to come and give any incremental business during this period. Till whatever time the lockdown lasts, we don't presume these guys will come and do anything incremental. So the idea is to protect the turf and ensure these guys don't go away anywhere. So to that extent, communication was sent out, a sense of empathy and sense of support that we are there and all that, a feel-good factor, which was good, well appreciated, well reciprocated. So that was one tangible step. The other one, of course, was to see that how good is your technology platform. So think radically and find out a different application leveraging the strength of that platform. So one of the things that we sort of thought was the platform offers the goodness of a track and trace, which means using the QR code, one can look at a supply chain problem, one can look at a sort of an in-transit problem, look at any company that's got to do with a real-time tracking of an asset. And use this as a different application area, though that was not a segment we were consciously running after. So what we see now is the delivery of essentials. All of you must have sort of experienced it, that the essentials, suddenly there are a lot of farming communities that are coming forward and finding their own mechanisms to deliver the essentials, especially the fruits and vegetables, directly from the farm to the customer. So this is an area which was like a different application area, not thought of before the pandemic hit us. And we said, let's use this platform to talk to these guys to see what we can do. So some of these folks came to us and said that, look, there is a lot of clutter in this market. A lot of people are trying to do a lot of things. We want to do something different. We want to identify a specific variable that tells the customer that when I'm buying a vegetable from an XYZ source, this is the freshness index. So to say that this is the freshness score. So that means we need a technology that measures the transit time right from the point of procurement at the farm to the point of delivery at the customer doorstep. So the platform sort of evolved itself. It's at a piloting stage now. It's at a discussion stage. Nothing has got rolled out. But the point I'm making is these are the kind of unconventional areas, or not something which is in your paradigm in a normal sense, where your current product can possibly extend itself. So I am kind of stemming away from saying that though we call ourselves anti-counterfeiting as a positioning, I'm questioning that positioning line to say that, let me make a deviation there. Let me use the platform in order to see where else a cash can be generated. So that's like adding a different customer segment to the equation. So one is to protect your turf and one is to see how an unconventional type of a customer can get added to the equation. Specifically, these are the two areas we're working on to see. One is at a planning stage that will help us maybe 3 months down the line. And one is at a current stage where at least the current revenues are protected. So specifically, I think this is how we are going about it. I guess every business has to sort of look at these 2 or 3 very critical areas and see what are the tangible actions on that front.
Radha ma'am, just one taking a clue from what you said a while ago, and also looking at that all of us are here from various streams and doing different things. At this point of time, I'm not too sure, but how quickly can, say, college create a small website where all these leading entrepreneurs, at least it can become our network, where we could upload, or all those entrepreneurs can upload what they are doing as a central repository. What it could help is, within our SIMSR network, if we are trying to look at certain aspects or certain things, it might become easier for us. And also taking a clue from one mail which has come from Monica ma'am, where she's trying to kind of either source as well as look at certain equipments and all. if we try to get this as a directory, and if we try to put this together within the network, I'm sure there's a lot of resourcing which can be exploited within the network, and it can also help at one place, which currently as a college we do not have. And I think it would be a good idea to assemble everything together, and we could touch base on the resources as need based, so it could help everyone within the ecosystem.
Okay, we could try and do something like that. So Arvind and Himanshi, so basically what we're saying is, you're suggesting is that we just now we've got a group of entrepreneurs together. So we get the group of entrepreneurs together, and maybe even family managed businesses, and say that these are the products or services that each one of us
Yes.
has. So if
Right.
you want to find a, you can find each other. Okay.
Right.
Great, that's a great
Precisely.
idea.
Yeah,
So we'll try and work
it's
on it.
amazing.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Amazing. It's like a marketplace for
Yes.
our own. Yeah,
Yeah,
excellent.
good suggestion, Lalit. Most of the times there is enough experience within this group itself, which could possibly
Right.
be paged as a first priority rather than hunting the town for that.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
No, thank you. Radha ma'am, any points about customer engagement?
What I have seen is that most entrepreneurs are struggling. Okay, I don't want to say, but then many of them are quiet also. So the entrepreneurs who've been in touch with me, a couple of them who've been in touch with me, they are saying that everything is under standstill, waiting for May 3rd to happen. So I don't know how much they are touching base with their clients, etc. But I see large organizations reaching out to all their vendors and making the calls. It is to vendors as well as employees. So every manager is talking to. Let's say the skip level management one level lower. He's certainly talking, but the next level and the next level, many of them are picking up the phones and talking to the next level. So maybe internally I see this, but externally I'm not too sure what others are doing. So I think what you guys mentioned was really useful. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in
Right.
fact, in
Thank you.
pharma, just kind of put up into perspective, right from the CEO levels, they are actually calling up to 3 levels below.
Yeah.
And within my network, they're talking to the employees, just kind of that emotional connect. And I think this crisis movement, that emotional connect, plays a very important role, because everyone is feeling so much uncertainty around this. People don't know whether they're going to have their job or not. So instilling that confidence and also taking them along, because a while ago when you said that people are trying to reduce the salaries and all, yes, at this moment of crisis, possibly it's not about reducing the salaries, but it's just about maintaining or not getting into that cash crunch situation. So what companies are intending to do, including me, for the current month, we are actually not going to do a full payment of the salary. Okay, we are reducing by almost 30%, but that money is parked with us. Once the business resumes, that is payable from our side, because right now, the complexity requires for us to spend more to get the products on time, possibly even at a higher rate. So that cash cycle has actually gone for a toss, but then end of the day, we need to manage. So it's not about, but at the same time, we are talking to our people and also telling them that, boss, this is the situation, this is the crisis, your money is safe with us. Once we resume, we are going to be paying you. So it's just about managing for some time, because end of the day, someone sitting at home, and I'm sure each one of us have also experienced that, our total expenses which used to happen in a month has gone down drastically, because we're not paying so much for the petrol now. We're not paying so much on the the entertainment part, or even on those non-essential things which we were spending otherwise, the network meetings and all that stuff. So yes, I mean, it's a way to communicate and also engage with the customers or our employees, and just keep them together as a flock.
Yeah, I mean, before
think,
we segue into that third part, I just want to take a quick minute and cover out some of the other points that we could focus on customer centricity. So one is a lot of customers are going to ask for discounts. Don't make it a company-wide policy saying that, hey,
Yeah.
it's free for all. Engage with each customer in a different fashion, because you can't make like you're not a B2C. I'm assuming there are no B2C over here. You're not a B2C where you have to offer a blanket discount. Second is, like Sendhil mentioned, engage with them, talk to them, find opportunities to talk to them. Don't harass them with over communication, but talk to them once in a while. Keep them on top of your mind recall. Figure out if you have COVID-19 specials. There could be a little bit something that you could do for them during these 90 days. Help them out in some way, even if it's not related to your business. Just try and help them out in some mechanism possible, and it doesn't require capital expenditure. And finally, use this time to increase value in your offerings. Maybe this is the time to jump up the quality that you wanted, jump up the turnaround times, find ways to drop the price. Let them know that you're working on this so that you could improve the value for the money that they're giving you, so that they know that you're a proactive person rather than someone who's going to wait for competition to force you into that. So with that, I think, Doctor, you mentioned a couple of points about employee connectedness. It's extremely essential how you communicate to the clients, how you communicate to the employees. They are anxious about losing their jobs. They are all working in a remote scenario. Probably for the first time, entire companies have gone into remote working. So that's new over there. We all know that the Indian household is not designed for work from home. All of us have the ability to have a dedicated room, a noise-free environment. I mean, the Indian households are accustomed to a lot of interruptions. So people are managing that. Plus, individual supply chains have been impacted. Like groceries are not flowing through, medicines are not flowing through. If you have senior citizens at home, if you have children at home, you don't know how to keep them occupied. So, and women especially are being like torn in 500 different directions. So there's a lot of things happening for the individual as well. Some of the things that we are doing as a business is every 2 weeks, every Sunday, I send out a one-on-one message to our entire company, and this is one-on-one, asking them that, hey, if you're okay, do you need any help with the groceries or something? Absolutely non-business related talk. But it was good to see that nearly 100% of them responded back by saying that, hey, thanks for getting in touch with us. We don't need any help, but we really appreciate the gesture. The other thing that we are doing is taking the time to come together as a company every 15 days and discuss some of the issues. You may not want to share revenue details with everyone, margin details with everyone, but at least you can allude to the fact what has been the impact. So some amount of formal communication with your entire organization is going to tell that, harmonize the message that we are not alone, everyone has been impacted, but we work together as a company, we'll emerge stronger. So those are some things that we are doing, but it'll be good to hear from you, Sendhil, and Dr. and Radha ma'am as well. So what are the other tips and techniques that business deploy to keep their staff engaged at this point?
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I think cash management and all these things are, while these are all absolutely vital to ensure business survives, I think the most sensitive of all these action points would be how do you deal with your employees across the board. I think in our case, at least a couple of these operations that I'm involved with, what obviously has happened is everyone knows the times are tough. Everyone, right from the technician level person to somebody who's a very senior business development person, knows that it's not going to be normal. There are going to be haircuts. There are going to be some changes which are going to be very disruptive in nature. But then the most important thing at this point, what I'm realizing as we go, because it's an ongoing developing situation, because even we are not experts in, as you said, Jaideep, something like this possibly hit us in 2008 to a very, very lesser extent. I mean, we were very heavily leveraged at that point in time with Middle East businesses. We had investors sitting in Abu Dhabi. What happened was, of the financial transactions did not go, but business was not disrupted to this extent. What we're seeing now is unprecedented, and what is not even known to even a fraction of a second to understand how many more months of adjustment or sort of turmoil we have to face even once the business starts resuming. So the most important thing we are dealing with now is a sense of empathy. So there is a lot of trust, which has to be built in. So we're focusing on a couple of areas. How do we as an organization build trust with people by constantly communicating? We being as transparent, as good behaved company as possible. I mean, that's something from our side. We do try and take a feedback and see whether it's actually being reciprocated down the line. So yes, telling them that you are important, and I would strongly advise against doing any reduction on a big level at this stage. I don't think anyone should even attempt doing this and telling people that we're going to retrench or we're going to reduce your manpower now, because that's going to have a detrimental impact on the brand, and it's also going to invite a lot of legal issues. You guys must have read, I see a lot of lawyers filing suo motu notices against companies for having sent them on furloughs or having sent them on leave without pay and stuff like that. So it's a very, very complex situation evolving. So the last thing, or rather a never to do thing now, is to retrench your people. You need to somehow hold on to them for reasons that, yes, they've been your assets. You need them once the times are good again, and for also not getting into unwanted legal hassles. So building trust was one of them. And of course, a bunch of things that we have done. One of the verticals that's there as part of the operation is an insurance vertical. So we did a COVID-19 policy for everyone across the board. So what tangible benefits we could give our employees. We've done that while we have communicated very distinctly and clearly that yes, the March salaries have been done, but the April going forward, we will evaluate and we will sort of periodically see where we stand and we'll come back to you. So mentally preparing themselves seems to be the key in telling them in a very proactive way that expect these things to happen. While no one wants to be, out of the system, everyone will be retained, but then telling them in a sort of a manner which sort of reduces the pain. It's an emotional trauma now. Dealing with that in a very, very empathetic way, I think is the only key. You need to constantly talk to them. You need to, handle them with its gloves. I mean, these are the very common sense stuff, but then it has to be done. It has to be consciously done and a feedback taken. I think that's what is most critical now.
Lalit?
Yeah, I totally agree. In fact, that's where communication is the most integral part to kind of get your people to stay hang on. Because end of the day, what we realize is in my kind of business where my sales guy is actually the relationship guy. Now, if he moves out of my system, even two of them move out, my future business is going to be impacted drastically. So the loss of taking him out for now and seeking a new employee 2 months down the line is actually more detrimental for the kind of business. So yes, obviously taking them out is not a solution, because 2 months down the line you will have to recruit if you want to continue with our business. So obviously at the same time, one has to also kind of look at it from a realistically what to expect in time to come. So it's time to revisit your business model. It's time to revisit that how it is going to span out. It's going to be based on assumptions, but at least there are certain assumptions with which you are trying to work out some logic. Because if I was doing 10 lakhs a month, it may not happen next month 10 lakhs a month. So possibly it might happen 5 lakhs a month. So how am I going to deal over with that crisis? How am I going to deal with the kind of gap which is going to be there? So all these aspects, one has to look at it from that perspective. But employee motivation is the most important. In fact, there are a lot of stuff which is happening around where engaging with them in trying to look at it from their customers list point of view, asking them to enhance their product knowledge. So there's a lot of activities in terms of still basically what we say is sharpening the skills, or sharpening the axe. And that's one of the critical part which we are doing during this lockdown period. And they also feel kind of still connected, and it's just not an uncertainty that company has just left us. So whole lot of communication, engagement things are happening, and that's a way to go.
Right, thank you. Radha ma'am, any tips over here?
Nothing much to add. Nothing much to add. Okay. So I'll tell you what I see in some startup groups, etc., which I'm part of on the WhatsApp and other communication tools. See, what I see is that many of them have businesses which they are doing currently, or they have a startup in one space, but they want to look at, so anything to do with the COVID-19 calls. They're trying to see whether they can move into that. So I read about this lady who runs a sanitary napkin machine, and how she has changed it to make to mask making machines, and she has sold it. So basically, how they're changing what they're doing currently to ensure that maybe some of their businesses may work from for the coronavirus situation just now. So that's the only thing that I have seen. It's not relevant to the question that we're discussing, but I just thought that I should mention that.
Thank you. So,
Thank you.
everyone, I think great inputs. I'm